but when things go wrong, then things fall apart.
I've realized I think I might have an addiction to growing YouTube channels, and maybe I need to speak to someone. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sketchwave, our weekly show where we talk all things Procreate and digital art. And I say we because it's myself, Joel, otherwise known as JoelCreate, and my co-host, the one and only James Julier. James, we're back in our normal seats this week. We are on the right side of the screens. It was awesome. How did you feel last week's episode went in hindsight now?
It was okay, yeah. It was a bit weird. I did obviously watch it just to see how it compares to the normal, and I'm aware that I'm a little bit of a flatter presence than you are as the intro thing. So you have a better, more energetic intro style than I do. I'm aware of this, but yeah, it was all right. It was quite nice to take the reins for once, and it wasn't a car crash, so we got through it without it was one edit, wasn't it? It didn't have any
one
cuts or
clean
anything.
run.
Oh, there you go. So I'll take that.
Wasn't that bad at all. How's the rest of your week been?
It's been all right, yeah. Bit of a disaster on Sunday. This is where my style, my approach of it's not necessarily by design, but when things go wrong, then things fall apart. So I didn't upload on Sunday. As anyone that's this will be released the week after. So the tutorial that I was going to upload the previous Sunday will hopefully be out by the time people watch this episode, because I will still release it. But yeah, I've got myself stuck in the mentality of wanting to only use iPad for everything, and for the majority of my life, it actually really works. But I've found that the app that I use, I almost don't want to shame it really, in case it's damaging to the. Anyway, we've not got a huge audience that is going to take a chunk out of their shares or stock market price or anything, and I'm not suffering under delusions. But okay, LumaFusion is the app that I'm using, and it's been fantastic. We'll throw them under the bus, and it has been a fantastic editing app. But yeah, it's just been jittery and crashing, and it could be just that I do so many little splices and cuts and editing things that it's just a bit heavy. But then the iPad, it should be able to handle that. It's the newest iPad. Everything's updated. And it just doesn't seem to be able to handle the task. So I'm going to have to reluctantly balance my production with a desktop. So I've got myself a Mac Mini on order, which, is an extra expense I wasn't anticipating this week. But we'll get through it. And in some ways, I know that you do a mixture of desk editing and, you use a laptop a lot, you were telling me. So,
yeah,
there you go. You've had a mic blooper as well.
Yeah, I just did exactly the same. I thought exactly the same thing. I was like, it's just going to run exactly the same as last time. No, I do a mix of. Well, I say a mix. I don't do anything on the iPad anymore other than draw. Yeah, everything gets moved from camera to laptop. And then editing from there. Yeah. But it'd be cool though for you to have the Mac Mini. We were saying, which one is it that you've ordered?
It's the really basic model, because the
new one.
Yes, the new one, the M4 one, not the M4 Pro, and it's not the upgraded storage or memory or anything else. It's the cheapest chips, kind of. I mean, it is actually a really good value Mac. It's like $599, and then I'm going to get a cheap monitor and cheap. Well, not cheap actually. It will be the Apple keyboard, but a cheap mouse, because it's only a preference thing. But I much prefer a wired mouse rather than a Bluetooth one. I can't be bothered with the charging of it. Once it's plugged in, it will forever work. I like the reliability of that. It's not like I have a huge, arms of reach of the mouse or anything. A while will be plenty long enough. So yeah, that's the one I've ordered, and then we'll see. It's been a while since I've used desktop much at all. I use my partner's kind of laptop occasionally. Well, the YouTube studio where we upload has a lot of back-house kind of stuff that you can do when you upload things that you can't really do on the app. And it doesn't allow you to do anything like that on the iPad. So I do a little bit of that, but yeah, it would be quite nice to move the workflow across to a desktop. I think I'm looking at it as a positive, and hopefully it'll make the task more fun.
We were saying before, weren't we, that I think it, have at least having that other option now, even if you maybe even convert it back to your iPad potentially in the future, having that option for the things we've spoken about on the show. So there won't be a bit of a surprise to anybody. You've spoken about how potentially in the future you'd want to do like a live stream. These are all potentials and stuff like that. So everybody chill out in the comments. But just like at least it gives you the option to maybe do that, and also maybe make life easier in certain ways. And I mean, I had a Mac. We were saying before we started, I had a Mac Mini and it was a beast. And the only reason I switched from it to a MacBook was simply because I wanted some portability of like where I wanted to edit, like edit in the garden or whatever it may be. Just that flexibility, which is awesome. So yeah, it's cool though. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see like what doors it may or may not open, and whether or not you change program and switch to something else or anything like that. We'll make sure we have some techie conversations behind the scenes.
You were saying in your deep dive last episode that you used the mouse a lot when you were first using Photoshop, and actually I think using the mouse for a lot of tasks is really, it's one of the best kind of interfaces with the computer you can have. And as much as I love the Apple Pencil, which obviously is preferable for drawing and painting, I think sometimes when you're using apps or programs, the mouse is the best thing. I've had a trackpad before and it's okay. It's good for zooming in and out of things, for example, but I think that the mouse is so ubiquitous, and we're so also used to using a mouse. I actually prefer it in many ways for navigating around,
So some people may think this is madness, but I have a nice mouse. Let's put it that way. I have I think it was like £100 and which for some people are like, that's fine. That's normal money for a good mouse. But other people are like £100 on a mouse. Yeah. Listen, it's the MX Master 3. If you know what it is, it's amazing. And there's programmable buttons on the inside. So it's a really ergonomic grip.
Like a gaming one? Can more or
No. It's just a proper normal mouse. But it's got, your standard clicks and vertical scroll, but you can also scroll horizontally with your thumb, which is amazing for us because you can go left and right in a timeline very comfortably. And it has 2 programmable buttons on the inside. So you'll appreciate this. Viewers will be like, this is boring. But on the inside, the 2 programmable buttons, one is a cut and then move to the left.
Okay.
So I drag it to where I need, click, and it moves it. It cuts everything from there to the last gap and moves the timeline and compresses it. So it gets rid of all that fluff. And then likewise, the button, alternatively, the other button goes the other way, so it goes forward. Right. So, and there's also another programmable button that you could use in there as well. So if there's an action, for example, in the apps that you use, you can change it, and it's programmable per app that you use as well. So for me in Photoshop, the inside there is actually zooming in and out with the 2 programmable buttons. So it's really fun and interesting to see like what you do the most in each app, and then just like customizing the mouse to make it so much more usable. But that left and right scroll is really cool.
I might have to try that out. Yeah, I might have a look at it at least. Yeah. So how's your week been? Yeah. Sorry, I've rambled on about
what my week since the last time we spoke. Pretty busy, to be honest. A lot of what I would refer to over the weekend as life admin stuff, just like not stuff you want to do, but you got to do. And yeah, it's just quite a lot of hard work really over the weekend to get certain bits and bobs done. And so yeah, that was pretty tiring. I think I'm suffering for a little bit this week at the beginning, but not through creativity though. We've spoke about, I had this it's 3rd channel now, probably a 3rd additional or 4th channel total. I can't remember what it is anyway, the Pokemon channel. I'm still absolutely sort of rolling with the creative energy that is giving me. So I'm pretty, I've realized I think I might have an addiction to growing YouTube channels, and maybe I need to speak to someone. When you get a channel go over a certain milestone, there's not really any milestones for quite some time. So you starting a new one, you get quite a few little pretty heavy hitting dopamine hits in a brand new channel because it's all new numbers and everything like that. So yeah, it's really fun, but it's not taken away from anything at the same time, which is cool. It's really cool to actually have many different outputs in a week of creative options and ideas and things that I can put together. So I'm really enjoying it. So one thing that we have really enjoyed and the viewers also enjoyed as well. Taking a look at the numbers on the back end, was our doodle challenge, our first monthly doodle challenge. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at your finished doodles that you've tagged us in on Instagram, because for the first month we were sort of working it out, weren't we, really, and trying to work out how we wanted to go about this monthly challenge, how we wanted people to submit their content to us, and that kind of that concept. We have had a little bit of feedback, well, I definitely have, of people saying, like, I don't have Instagram. Is there any other way of me participating? And we have heard that, and I want to action it as soon as possible for the next month. So we're actually recording the doodle challenge next week. So the second doodle monthly challenge. We'll flush it out properly, but I have heard the feedback, and we have just had a conversation offline about sort of how we can go about it. We're going to change it, and this may change again come next week. So once the doodle challenge is actually out, we'll have all the instructions in there for you, but we're probably going to change it to like a Google Drive. So where you download the doodles from, you'll be able to upload your versions. I'm thinking most likely you're going to end up having to do exactly what you've all been doing so far, perfectly fine, but you may also have to put a little bit of text in the bottom right corner of your images with your name, just so we know whose it is, because being that it's a Google Drive, it will be very difficult compared to Instagram, where we've got usernames to take a look at. But again, that might be subject to change. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at your submission. So you'll be able to see all of them on screen. And we're very grateful for everybody joining in as well. It's been cool to see everybody's interpretations of what we came up with. So Cockle is up first. Cockle's actually one of our members of the channel as well. So Cockle has used the doodle that you provided, wasn't it, James? It was you created this landscape initially.
Yes, it's based on that doodle that I did, wasn't it? Yep.
So we don't necessarily have anything other than a little line underneath that I can see on Instagram, a little comment that also says inspired by their vacation to Florida. So when the second I saw the alligator or crocodile in the water, it gave me that kind of vibe of Florida. I remember as a kid going to Gatorland over there, and you're like a good, I can't remember how many feet up on these really high wooden walkways, and then out of nowhere they'd be dangling, like, what in my mind as a kid, like a whole chicken, and this like massive alligator or crocodile would just fly up and out, and it would be enormous and completely vertical. So yeah, bit of that kind of swampland sort of styling to it.
It's also got some kind of like little glowing things in that. It's like a giant mushroom or giant tree in the background, which is very interesting, different from the other trees.
I really like the draping of the greenery as well in the trees. That's a really cool style that I can't say I do very much. That kind of, I don't know what type of tree that is. Willow kind of tree.
Well, it looks like kind of like spruce or some kind of fir tree, doesn't it? But with willow kind of foliage on it, which is an interesting blend.
Yeah. Definitely. And Cockle, you've done a perfect job. And this is a great example of what we want to see, of when you submit your doodle, you also submit it with a version where we can see the doodle. It just helps us work out exactly where you've put it, because some people are going to make it the majority of the scene, and some other people are going to make it potentially a smaller element within it. Let's take a look at the next one, James. If you want to take a look at this one and sort of talk me through what you're looking at.
Well, this is using your design, your doodle, isn't it?
It is, and it's from Cockle again.
Oh, right, okay, brilliant, fantastic. Been very productive then. I really like the way that they've kind of interpreted that main shape as the kind of water in a broader landscape. We've got something spring-like, haven't we, with cherry blossom? I presume it's cherry blossom. It reminds me of that, certainly.
Yeah. And we've also got an additional tag there. I'll just mention that the whole thing was done with the Evolve brush.
Well, there you go. That's quite. I'm studying it now, trying to think how I would do all of that with the Evolve brush. Well, very good.
Well,
I
there's
like the
definitely
sparkles on the water. That looks really nice, isn't it? Nice colour scheme.
It is. It's a very pretty design. The colours are quite pastel-like, especially in that sort of top half with the beautiful greens and blues and pinks. There's some James Julier smudging there going on as well by the edge of the water, I can see, with the blades of grass. Yes. So I was thinking, how do you get something so fine? Yeah, using the Evolve brush. But that is definitely on show. And again, another great example where we can see the doodle.
Yes,
it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
I must admit, when I created that doodle, I was like, I had no understanding of how people would use it. But I have since had an idea, and I'm interested to see if we actually have it within this selection. I'm going to move on to then the third one that we've had provided. And again, this is from Cockle. Now I'm going to have to go ahead and take a look at it.
Yeah, clever.
So we've got here with the two doodles. So this is quite common of, this is quite common of what I see typically on my doodle challenge I used to do on Instagram, where sometimes duplicating it, flipping it, and just moving them apart, or twisting them potentially, can create a whole different shape. So we've got this, I would imagine, a very bird's eye view, looking down as above a dragon, above this landscape style design.
Very Game of Dragons, isn't it? Or not Game of Dragons, House of Dragons, Game of Thrones. Getting the two mixed.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. Yeah.
Game of Dragons. That'll be the third spin-off. That'll be we'll be waiting a lifetime for it. Hopefully they don't butcher the ending of that one as well. Cockle, thank you so much for your submission. I believe that's all of yours. Up next, we've got our fourth entry is from Alice Bolan Art, and this is beautiful little park scene. This is again where like it kind of goes backwards and forwards a little bit, don't you think? Because we've created the doodle, they interpret it, and then we also then get to reinterpret it coming back as the doodle, unless there's a particular style of descriptive caption with it.
Sure.
But for me, this is a really pretty park scene and just very peaceful.
Very soft, isn't it? Very. I recognise the rainforest brush there, I believe, in a lot of the foliage, but I really like that. I think, it's a favourite of mine, so it's nice to see it has that kind of soft, pastel-y kind of colour scheme as well. Very seasonally, kind of the spring, summertime. We've not got quite enough of that yet. I need more of that in my life at the minute. I would quite happily sit on that bench in that environment at the minute. It looks very, very lovely.
It does. Very pretty. And do you know what I quite like about immediately this is the fact that you can see that how your teaching has then encouraged certain elements of this design, like with the rainforest brush, like your techniques that you've taught throughout your tutorials have encouraged like certain parts of this to look a certain way. And I think you could almost look at this and immediately say that there has been an influence from you, like without even sort of giving it too much time. Like you just see it straight away, and you can see those types of elements in there. So it's really pretty. What I actually quite like as well, looking at this, is obviously mine was quite a similar style in a sense with that left to right lighting, but to see it in color, to see it in a different set of brushes, also with the paths. They look like they're grass still, but like heavily trimmed to create these little pathways for people to walk through. And it just gives it a whole different sort of aesthetic to it. Very pretty. And again, I totally agree with you. Somewhere you shadows sit and spend the day.
And the shadows really work well as well, especially on the left trees. The shadows and the grass from the trees on the left really are convincing. I think it looks good. I like it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well done, Alice. Let's move on then to the next one. No, I lied. Cockle has a fourth submission. So Cockle, you're absolutely flying.
Put us all to shame,
yeah, we only manage one each in an hour. So we've got a waterfall design here. Again, this is using the doodle that I provided.
Good use of it. I like that. Yeah.
It is. It's very good. It's leaning very close to what I kind of saw, where it was used in like in a vertical way.
Right.
I'll better explain myself in a second, but this is very cool. I love the little rainbow at the bottom as well, which you'd see above the mist of the water. There's lots going on here, which is very pretty to look at.
Works well on that, doesn't it?
It does. And the colours as well. Lots of sort of, I would say this maybe leans a bit more to an autumnal kind of scene almost, because of the kind of orangey yellow tones in the distance. What do you think?
It has got a very painterly look. It's almost like an image of two halves in a sense. The top half has like that autumny feel, doesn't it? And really painterly. And then you've got the kind of waterfall and the rainbow, but then they kind of stitch them together really nicely as well. I think it's a beautiful image. I think it's really effective. Interesting use of the shape. It wouldn't have come to my mind, but now look at it, I think it's a really clever use of it.
It makes total sense as well when you like. There's certain elements there, those sort of dark rocks on the right hand side at the top, just before the waterfall. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It says here as well, in one of the comments that the brush primarily used was the Taralia brush, which is quite a messy brush the majority of the time. So that is quite good that you've been able to keep that under control. It's quite a very heavily scattery style brush. So well done to you, Cockle. That is another awesome submission. Let's take a look at, well, I said it was the last one. This is Cockle's 5th submission this month's Doodle Challenge. This is the Cockle Challenge at this point. So we've got, so this is really cool. This is where I wanted, I wanted to see how someone would change it and really do something completely wild from it. Not to say that the others are different in terms of, you know, keeping it very close to what the doodle was provided, but it is always interesting to see like a mix up to
it's definitely more wild,
the styling. Yeah,
definitely more far out. Yeah.
I think if you could have done something like this as well with the styles that I've seen that you tend to enjoy very often.
I'm just trying to take it all in. There's a lot going on there, isn't there? I guess kind of UFO spaceship-y type. It can only be, can't it? It's got lots of people in the little porthole windows there and stuff. It's fantastic. Yeah, there's a lot of imagination put into that. I'm trying to make sense of it all. There's a lot going on. It's cool.
It's very cool. It's just interesting. I love seeing what people see when they see like just a couple of lines and they go, "Yeah, it's a space station near Mars," and the words are Oribish. Meaning welcome travelers. No, so it's not in English. It's not in English. It's in another language. So I don't know whether the language has equally been made up. I didn't know. I saw it in the caption. Awesome work, Cockle. Thank you again for another submission. We're then moving on to. I'll try not to butcher the name, but it is a Bio Suro. Sorry, I'll be the worst person to read out username, so I apologize. Is a Bea Suro. It'll be on screen anyway. Yeah. This one makes absolutely perfect sense of the shape that you gave me at the very back there for the mushroom.
I love it. I love that giant mushroom. It really pushes that fantasy side of it strongly, doesn't it? But yeah, I think that's a really good use of it.
Do you know what? I think the way that they've done it has almost changed the scale of what we're looking at. Like in mine definitely. And the previous one, it was like a park that people could walk through comfortably. I almost feel as if I'm like tiny.
Yeah.
Among like some reeds of the grass and some just natural water.
Alice in Wonderland kind of territory, yeah.
Almost, yeah. Like we're under the size of a mushroom, you know, like I almost feel like we've been shrunk down, and that's almost emphasized by the quite large grassy blades there. What do you think?
I agree, absolutely. I think the perspective of looking up at the underside of a mushroom is a really good, because I don't know whether that was inherently in the doodle. I'm trying to just examine the lines of it. I don't think I had envisaged looking up quite so much from the original, the doodle shape. Yeah, I suppose other people have kind of interpreted it similarly.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely got heavier on the perspective of looking up at it, you know, which is great. I think that playing around with the scale is really a cool thing to do. Something I enjoy doing too. Really nice.
It says here as well in the caption that they set themselves a 2-hour limit, so that's nice. I like that because it doesn't mean that you get too lost in it and overdo it, you know, just having some fun and being really free with it, which this looks exactly the same kind of vibe that I would have wanted to do. Yeah. Would have wanted to do with the kind of just free, expressive kind of grassy blades and not meticulously sitting in there and trying to replicate layers upon layers of grass. Yeah. It's very cool. Moving on next then, the next one is also from the same user as well. And this is the same, this is my doodle. It's a bit tricky to see, it might be for you, James, equally, but the doodle has been flipped, I believe, upside down. Right. And it goes all the way around here along the green. Yeah. So it's working with like negative space in the middle. And then it looks as if, let me try and just read the caption quickly. No, it doesn't necessarily say what they are, but to me, again, this is where it's sometimes really cool because it's up for interpretation. We've got kind of two dinosaurs fighting over a carrot. Or lizards. What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? But really, it's not something I wouldn't have even thought about it as the negative spaces like that. It's a very imaginative use of those shapes, isn't it? But it works. I can see it now. I'll never unsee that in the shapes. I think.
Yeah. It looks even better when the doodle's not there, because
Yeah.
the scene just kind of makes sense as to what's happening. Potentially the purple one's sneaking up on a sleepy blue one about to rob it, like two dogs do when they try to rob each other's toys. But when you see the doodle, it's really clever how you've managed to make.
Maybe the dragons. Are they dragons? It seems like it's got a folded wing on the blue one.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we need to better add in, like, maybe we need a third image provided, especially when we move to the Google Drive, that's like your description of it. Or maybe we don't. Maybe we can leave it up for interpretation. Yeah. I'll leave it up to the viewers to decide. That's all of the doodles that we had for month one.
Very good.
We really appreciate everybody who was able to send us their designs. We appreciate that obviously not everybody was able to do it in terms of submitting their design. So we will, as I mentioned, we'll make some changes and we will carry on next month with a slightly different plan. But it's been exactly what I wanted to see. We get to have some fun doing a doodle as well, me and you, for a show. And then likewise, everybody else gets to equally participate and we get to showcase their work as well. So
definitely.
Have you started your doodle yet, or you going to?
No. It'll be a last minute thing, like I always do. It'll be I don't like to pre-plan things too much. I'll just throw a shape together and then you'll have to deal with it. Yeah. And likewise. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm trying to think of maybe something I can do that's a little bit different in terms of the shaping, at least compared to last time. So
I'm going to go
we'll see what we come up with. It'll be interesting.
Definitely going to go a bit more adventurous the next one. Go for something that's really odd. Not necessarily in the sketch, but whatever you give me, I'm going to try and interpret it weirdly as well. So
okay, cool. Nice. We'll see what we come up with for next week. So as always, typically in a lot of our episodes, when we get the chance to, we take a look back through our latest tutorials. James, we have already mentioned this, but just very quickly, do you want to talk about the design that didn't quite make it onto YouTube?
Yeah. I mean, I've done a few tutorials over the last few weeks that have been, said in terms of very ready for springtime. So I'm bringing some lush kind of sunny green environments things. I mean, it's a little bit, it's very much in the shadows, but it has that kind of light piercing through in places too. So we've got a little bit of a cave entrance, a mysterious kind of looking little secret place in the kind of woods. So you might sort of stumble across it and then venture in if you dare. But it's got that kind of, I intended it to be a little bit more anime style. It's gone almost a bit gloomier than that. But yeah, it was one I really enjoyed doing. I was looking forward to getting that one out. Sunday gone, although it will be out by the time people see this. So thankfully it will be out so people can go and see it. But I really enjoyed doing that. I love there is a reason why I keep returning to light and shadow and vibrant greens in the sunlight and cool colours in the shading, shadow areas. I just love that contrast. I really enjoy the play of light on things and the dappled light that comes through in woodland scenes, and I'm just enjoying doing it, and I gravitate more and more towards that. I'm going to have to mix things up a little bit. I'm going to have to throw some different kind of content in there, otherwise it's going to get too predictable. But for the meantime, I'm enjoying really lush green kind of environments. I mean, that kind of I was looking through the full run of tutorials that both of us have done, and we've got a similar kind of vibe almost going through all of our images, haven't we? But I, in terms of colours, a little bit. I think
it's hard in it this time of year. It's the type of vibe that you want to give off, and the kind of colours, etc., that we haven't done for a little while, like that kind of spring and very green and luscious.
Yeah.
One thing I really love about your design there, before we carry on, it's almost got like a vanishing point. Like a perspective point, almost at the top that is slightly far away, but you're getting that kind of like pinching towards the top. Yeah. It spreads out quite wide at the bottom, and it gives me this kind of real sense of height. Like I imagine that potentially at the top of the stone up there could be someone quite small stood up there. like at the very top in the gaps, which would then
Yeah.
like show me the scale of how big this kind of cave is. One thing I've noticed though with the 2 images that I've got for you from this week, have you changed your canvas size ratio? It looks really tall compared to normal, and I don't know if that was something purposeful or not.
No, it should just be A4.
Okay.
Yeah, it might just be the images that
It
give
might
the
be.
impression of length, like say it's that exaggerated sense of height.
Yeah.
And the other one has like a path that seems to, a lot of the focus and attention is towards the center. So it has
Okay.
a slight sense of it narrowing, but no, they're just A4.
No,
Yep.
nice. Oh, it looks really cool. Maybe, like you say, it's the perspective and the drag of it, like upwards, that is giving it that sense of like looking slightly longer and taller, which is probably exactly what you wanted to pull off. What are you going to do for your extended version with this one?
I don't know, because it'll be a week delayed.
The other one didn't even make it onto YouTube, so yeah, it's a bit, of a tough one to try and think that far ahead.
I mean, the other one that I'll talk about, I added things like little flowers and extra rocks and stuff like that. So it may just be that I spent a bit longer on fine tuning the rocks on this one. Although I was quite happy with the loose effect of it. I don't know whether I want to necessarily get too bogged down in really carving straight lines and things like that into it. So I might just do some foreground foliage and maybe some flowers in there just to give it that spring summery kind of feel. Really ramp that up.
The first thing I saw when I thought about an extended version of this, I was like, he needs to add what I refer to as magic. Like a blue or purpley kind of glow deep inside the cave, and then little sparkles just flowing out and into the forest. So that's sick.
Again, for my extended version, I'm going to be adding a magical quality of a glow coming from the cave. Yeah. Yeah. Glad you asked.
I think it looks, I don't know what, it's got such an awesome vibe of like this ancient kind of thing that I can, and I don't know if it's just the line work that is in the stones, and you've tried to put obviously the horizontal cuts in there as well. But I can almost imagine that there's like glowing symbols on the exterior of that as well that gives it that kind of like vibe to it. Like magical kind of deep in the forest, because that, if you looked at that, you'd be like, where on earth does that go? Or is it a shallow kind of just entry into there, just a little sort of like hideaway in there, almost just a little shallow one? Or is it a deep entrance into a huge cave system or something like that? I love it. I overthinking them a little bit too much, but in the best way possible, like just letting the creativity just go, woof, where else could this go?
Yeah, you're giving
sometimes
the idea, so I appreciate that.
But sometimes I think I look at some of your work and I think, how on earth is he going to do an extended version? And then some weeks I sit here and I've got loads of ideas that are like, saving my canvas to touch. We'll move on to the next image then in the doc, which is one from my page on exactly what you were saying in terms of the vibe of things. Everything's green, everything's just luscious and sun rays and so on. So we spoke about previously about this one, to be fair, was also shot a little while ago, but is it's still part of the mindset of, I was looking at some of my older work and there's clear like staggered elements to this. Like you got the very dark tree on the right hand side that equally curls around on the bottom left, and you've got some grassy kind of ferns almost in very dark tones, and then you've got a layer back which slightly lighter, another layer back and another layer back, and there's clear distinction and separation between all of them on like that kind of just staggered kind of tiered kind of design. And this one is a mix of like wanting to replicate that, but with the elements that I've picked up over time, and just seeing if I could revisit those simpler styles, but with the things we've learned and styles and blurring and sun rays and so on, but also a nod as well to what we've previously spoken about of trying to incorporate a character or some sort of silhouette of somebody in there as well to add that kind of focal point in there. Again, I want to leave it up to people's interpretation. Is this jungle massive in scale?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Huge, or a tiny person tiny?
Yeah.
So I like the idea of the first one. I like the idea that this is some sort of like, again, not maybe of this world kind of thing, and it's a bit more fantasy based and everything's massive. And also trying to actually convey that is very tricky. Like it's so hard to say that person is not tall and sorry, it's just a tiny person, if that makes sense. Doing it the other way around and trying to show that the land is actually massive, the scale of the trees are huge, I find it very tricky. And I've learned that if you can put a few of those quite wide trees in there, it makes a huge difference to the perspective. Because like the working of this one took a while to actually just keep drawing it and change it and see what I can come up with and see how what looks good and what doesn't. And the width of the trees just clicked at one point, but it wasn't clicking for so long. Keeping them thin, it just looked so boring. So yeah, it came out exactly how I wanted to do. I really love the blurring and this light, the soft elements to this at the same time, like the light rays and stuff.
I also like the crisp kind of edges to things as well, like the little rock, the lighting on the rock, the little character, and the little character itself has got a real sharpness to it. In contrast to the edges and the blurred out things, I like that kind of interplay of really sharp and then more blurred out features. It reminds me of you're not a Star Wars fan, or you've not seen any Star Wars.
Not a fan. I've just not seen it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There's the the planet or the moon or whatever it is. The place called Endor where the Ewoks sort of hang out, and there's giant trees there, and it reminds me of that. So really nice.
Now, one thing that's pretty cool about this is a bit different. So the character, I actually went ahead and downloaded like a 3D model app, not of like where you have a model and a figure and you can warp and change and like move body parts and joints, etc., to give the general, body
reference.
And and it was literally just brought that over into Procreate and then caped him a little bit, added the cane in there as well. So it was really cool to use something.
Fantastic.
We've said before, like I don't draw people, so the anatomy sometimes is a bit tricky to try and correctly do. So if that's not something you draw but you want to implement it, there's other ways of doing it, and that's exactly what I also reference in the tutorial. Like I show them what I did, because I want people to also know there's other options. There's not just can't add people, or you have to add people completely 100% correctly and draw it from memory. There's loads of steps in between there of all the different options available to you. So it's cool. It's cool to add in
really like it.
A new little element to it. I want to try and do more of this kind of, again, that kind of flat tiered layer design, but in like lots of color. Sort of tones. So this one's obviously heavily green, yellow. I want to do like a blue one, purple, red, and so on, just to have like a variety of them. So let's move on then. Let's move on to your next tutorial. Is this the extended, you said? Because
it is the extended one, yeah. Let me double check. It is. Well, I've done a few structures already, and I wanted to show the interplay of light and shadow in a quite a dramatic. I love it. I like because the render on the house is like a dazzling white when the sun hits it, and then it's got these cool blue grey tones and the shadow parts of it, and I just really like. Because there's the cut-off point. If you get an overhang of the roof, and then it creates the shadow that just really interrupts that what would be a really brilliant white surface. So it almost sells the illusion of the 3D depth and the light itself. If it has a recognizable difference in shadow and then bits in the direct sun, it helps a lot. I think. I was always a bit nervous previously about doing things in direct sun, because it's almost a little bit easier if it's just. We've spoken about it before. When the sun is lower in the sky, then you just get a little hint of it around the edges. And I was familiar with doing that, and I've done a lot of that. But I'm enjoying the sun that's coming from more overhead, and the things that does for an environment. And I think it's like with anything, once you've done one or two that you've enjoyed it and you found success with it, you kind of want to continue playing in that area, don't you? So
yeah, absolutely.
I've done one or two now that play around with that concept, but they get a little bit expanded on. They get a little bit more complex as we go along. I think is it the most complicated structure I've done, perhaps? So it's one of them. It's not just a little hut at this point. It's got a bit more detail than just being a little ramshackle hut. So I'm hoping to continue in that vein and get a bit more complicated as we go along. It's just time frames. Trying to do a whole environment and a complex structure at the same time feels like a lot to do within the space of an hour's tutorial, say. I mean, it doesn't really stand up to a lot of scrutiny. It's very, very rough. I mean, intentionally so. But yeah, if I was going for a structure that demanded straighter lines and more precise architecture, then I might struggle to do that a bit more.
But it doesn't give that approach, though. It gives very heavily detailed.
I think that's just. I think it's the subject. I think because there's so much overgrown, and the structure itself is so ramshackled looking. I mean, the windows, if you actually zoom in, are really unrefined, But you get away with it because they're in the shadow, and they're a subtle change of tone between the black of the window and the brown of the wood. The only bit that would need to stand up to more scrutiny is the little bit of the door that is in the direct sun. But it's such a minimal part of it that you kind of you get away with not having to be as refined as perhaps you would do otherwise. But yeah, I really enjoy doing that. And then the additions with the stones and the flowers.
I think you're very critical on this one because I mean, I look at this and I think it's absolutely like it's super refined, super polished. It looks so heavily detailed and granular. Like the rainforest brush does wonders for that in terms of just adding lots and lots of specks of it, and it looks great. But it's still the application of it and adding it in there. And I appreciate what you've done there. Like there's certain points that like you want to just maybe add like a bit of greenery over this area and a bit of greenery on the bit of structure itself. And if anything, it looks even better. It just makes it look more fantasy-like and more just completely buried within this world that you've created. It's so pretty as well. The fact that you've also put the light predominantly in the top 2/3, like landing on the ground. I love that. I would easily, I know I would. And this is where like these are quite valuable. I hope they're valuable for people as well, as much as they are for me. But like you just not saying, right, I'm not going to put any of that light green at the front. It's covered by a tree, clearly. It makes total sense. But doing it and applying it can be very tricky to do, and kind of thinking about things like not even in frame, out of frame, and how they then affect things within frame. Very, very interesting and very sort of...
like I say, it's always
the mindset's amazing.
I think when I do a lot of my personal stuff outside of tutorials, I always just think of it as a little snapshot on a much bigger environment, So there's always stuff outside of the frame. If you just move this way a little bit more, there'll be another thing.
Yeah,
and like I say, they should, I suppose, impact upon what we do see in the frame, don't they?
It is brilliant. Very, very cool.
Thank you.
My next one then, and the final one that we're going to look at, is one that was on YouTube. I haven't done one
I do
like
love this one. I really
for
like
a while. Thank you. It's a design that's like just very loose and grainy and very heavily streaky. But it's again, my idea was I wanted some sort of springtime scene with some wildflowers, just nice and green. As in, like, it just gives me that vibe that it was like the first really warm day, and you're like, we've got to go on a walk. Like, we've got to take the dogs out. We've got to go somewhere, and like you'd be rewarded with like all that sunshine and just seeing everything just blooming a little bit. I definitely feel like Blackburn brush is pretty much the main brush.
That's great.
Yeah, Blackburn brush is pretty much everything. Well, that kind of purposeful, streaky content you can see. Even the frame, creating that, is the Blackburn brush.
Cool.
And then there's the Evolve brush for the wildflowers, just dabbing it in there, letting it be random. And also the Evolve brush is, I think it's the Evolve. If you press really lightly, even with the same brush size, you can just get that scraping effect. And then like just towards the sort of, as the path turns to the right, you end up with like these clusters of like really distant flowers, but there's lots and lots of tiny, tiny little grains in there that the brush just gives you. And it's so easy to apply, like almost like a meadow-like look to something. But yeah, I wanted to give that like a bit direct sunlight kind of vibe, nothing kind of in the way. And just, nice and bright and green and luscious. And, I messed around when I was doing the concepts for this of, did I add one with water? The body of water, the initial one didn't have it. But I added it. And then I thought this only now makes sense with it. Yeah, it's I think it adds to that kind of, it's luscious and blue, and then the white on top is that direct sunshine, and everything is just boom, just lovely and warm. Again, you might be able to spot in the distant mountain, there's a path. The path actually continues beyond into the distance. So it kind of, in my mind, that water, we're kind of, if you went round the path a little bit on the foreground, you'd maybe go round a bay and then go to that mountain in the distance and carry on the path through the mountains to the very back. Sorry, I cut you off there.
It's fine. I really love I think it's kind of what I was saying, really, in terms of those cool colours in the shadow part, and then contrasted with the really warm and zingy greens and vibrant colours, and the bit where the sun's hitting, obviously. It's something that fascinates me at the moment, and it's there in that image as well, and I think it's really... I really like the crispness of it, and it's a really scratchy, kind of heavy texture, but unlike, I mean, on the one we've just been talking about with me, it was a lot of rainforest, and the rainforest is really nice granular texture, but it's very soft. It's got a really gentle kind of soft expression to it in a way, but this is really kind of sharp and angular and scratchy, and I really like the crispness of the kind of chaos of this brush. It looks really great. Really like that.
I think also there was another brush used, and I think it, like, so basically I created the streaks of the mountain towards the middle of the scene, but with the blackbird, and then once I'd done all the streaks, I then went back in, and I think it was with the evolved brush to kind of give daps here and there of like not streaks but like dabs of color, and trying to show maybe like trees and whatnot, and like this unstreaky kind of look to it, because it looked too streaky. It's just simple as that, like too much like flow of the land and not enough kind of variation and distortion. It was it's fun to make, and it very fun for me to try and push the boat and like, cranking the saturation up a little bit, going for it, and at the same time like enjoying the style. I think it's also really important to actually give a shout out, because a long time ago when I used to do a series on my channel, it was called oh god, I can't remember what the actual playlist was called now, but it was like a shout out. It was a special guest series. That's what it was on the channel. And I would have people on that I always would try and find creators that were just starting and had a real skill, and were doing very similar content to what we do, to very typical, like the format. And the user was Atty. It was Atty_art 7673. And they have this style, and it's very kind of on point to that in a way. So I kind of want to nod to and just sort of shout them out as well, because please go and check them out. They're absolutely fantastic, and they have this aesthetic as well, and it's just so pretty and inspiring that it makes me want to pick up those brushes numerous times. So yeah, big shout out to them as well. And if you want more of that style, please go check them out. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. So that's a look at all of our content. That's a look at all of the content we've released this week, as well as your content as well that you have provided to us for the Doodle Challenge. Again, we're going to be back next week with the second Doodle Challenge, monthly Doodle Challenge. So you can download the PNGs and then submit them. We do urge, I think it's worth noting, we do urge people to get involved as soon as possible with the Doodle, because we will record, always a week in advance, and then not only that, we then also have, we record the episode where we look at your content a week earlier as well. So there's pretty much like a 2-week window from when the content actually comes released out on YouTube. So I think what we'll also try and do is maybe put like a get your entries in by this date as well going forward. This is all part of the process, isn't it? Like doing something new, and hopefully the viewers can bear with us as we really try and iron out the format. And as we do, it only makes it better for people to get involved with and enjoy the process. So James, thank you as always, mate, for a good chat. I hope you're looking forward to your new computer turning up and messing around with the mouse link that I'll send you, no doubt. Thank you as always for everybody watching. If you want to support the channel, one of the best things you can do, of course, is subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. Drop a like on the video. Let us know what you thought of the episode. But if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a member of the channel by hitting the join button down below, or otherwise using the link in the description down below. You can support the channel and all of the work that we do here. You'll also get a loyalty badge beside your name that grows over time, as well as early access to the show as well. We typically upload it just shy of a week in advance for our members to enjoy it. And every single time I see people commenting on a video and I think, that's not even out yet. And I went, they're members. It's fine. This is what they get access to.
Growing.
So yeah, if you want to check that out, Links in the description down below. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of the Sketchwave.